I don't think that anyone needs those, but it should be passing to Kevin and Stephen. Yeah, we'll get to that.
Oh, Frank can do that.
Oh, what time is it?
7:01.
Good, Bev, when Mark's not here, I always pick on you to read the rules of conduct, please.
Okay, Mark's on the screen.
Uh,
All right, the rules of conduct. This is a web-based call, so this meeting is operating under the following procedures. This session is both being video and audio recorded. Commissioners and staff will generally remain on mute except when speaking or voting and will generally be kept keeping video themselves on throughout the meeting. If a member of the public creates an audio or video disruption, they may be manually ejected from the meeting upon recommendation of staff or the chair. For public input before the meeting, please email comments to publicinput@columbiacc.org within 24 hours before the meeting.
Thank you. I now call the meeting to order. Let's stand. I
Pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all.
So last week. Is there a motion
To make a motion to accept the minutes as printed.
I'll second.
Motion and a second, any discussion? All those in favor? Opposed? Abstention? Okay, let's get right into budget discussion. Anybody want to throw anything new on the table before we start? It was relatively quiet last week. I think we had a couple of questions on the board of ed budget, not really challenged. One had to do with the equipment, as I recall.
So the equipment line, what it is to replace smart boards with Promethean boards. As they break in the classroom, smart boards are outdated and Promethean boards are newer technology. And that is the proposal for the technology. Also iPads are in there as well as the Chromebooks for grades 2 and up.
Okay, I think I misspoke. I think somebody had a question on the use of outside data processing people. Is that correct?
IT, I mean, we had originally had more money in the budget to have IT on campus 5 days a week. It was already reduced to 3, which is what it has been for the past year and 2 years.
Okay, and the number in the budget is consistent, correct? Okay. Are you holding up your head?
No. I was just holding up his head.
Twitch.
Yeah.
And I emailed a question today is,
You asked about salaries for special education as well as regular education. And this is something we had last week that I can present to you today. You're welcome to have a copy. It shows the salaries. You could ask why it's difficult, you know, I'm paraphrasing, difficult to do the math and see how the increases occur. Again, a lot of that has to do with a lot of factors. One being if somebody retires or leaves. Last year, with the teacher shortage, they were replaced at a higher level with more experience, which makes them higher up on the pay scale. Additionally, when teachers, certified staff receive new degrees, such as a master's degree or their 6-year degree, they move over into another column and increase a step. So ultimately, individual teachers will get more than a 3% raise. And that's the case. And with paraprofessionals, we have a lot get trained and move up on the pay scale as well.
no, I haven't spotted those two lines, you know, I just couldn't get the point of what we had, of course, I don't know as much as you know. But what you're telling me is you looked at the numbers and you were satisfied they're at the right place. And in your mind, you could get the point in your thinking.
Hopefully this document will help you. See what-
I'm not gonna study that, trust me. Anybody else have any comments or questions on any of the budgets?
I have a question about this document.
Mhm.
Looks like the music teacher resigned and you're not planning on replacing a music teacher, is that?
So one resigned last year.
Yes, it was replaced, it's just a different name, it's a different name, so I took out them, I didn't put next to each other just because, oh, it was done, so there is a new, there are two music teachers.
Yeah, okay.
Okay, it sounds like we reached a point where nobody is totally dissatisfied or uncomfortable with any part of anybody's budget.
I have a question. So I look at the superintendent. Now, I will tell you that when our previous superintendent, before the last one, before the sitting one, as the year ends up, in an exit interview with me, I asked,
Mr. Fearer.
yes, I asked, could Horace Porter School in the schools of Columbia, because we are negotiated with E.O. Smith, we've negotiated with Bolton, everything is pretty well set there, they're locked in, they go up on percentages and stuff. And we have one preschool to 8th grade. Could we get by with a part-time or a shared superintendent? And he said to me, yes, you could. And when I asked the school board, their answer was, we're in a time of transition and it's not the right time to do that, we feel. Okay. I'd love to know, and school board isn't here, I'd love to know when is the right time to do that? And could we get by on a shared or part-time superintendent position? Because I believe that Andover, who has up to 6th grade maybe, and then they send their kids to the RAM co-op, conglomerate, whatever, they share a superintendent with another town. Have we thought of that? Have we discussed it? Is it absolutely off the table, or how do we feel about that?
I mean, I could bring it to the Board of Ed to answer those questions for you. I mean, I'm not prepared to answer those tonight. I can tell you Andover, I used to work in Andover, their district goes to 6th grade. They have 200 or less kids. When they move on to RAM, it's an entirely new district.
Right.
So they, in fact, Andover taxpayers pay for a superintendent for that school as well as a portion of the.
A portion, a third of, or whatever their ratio is. Okay.
So
Yeah.
they do
Okay.
not have any responsibility, the superintendent of Andover, for high school students, once
Right.
they are out of 6th grade.
Okay, that's a good point. You just brought that up. So let me add into my comment. How much does the superintendent of Columbia really have any power in the school systems in Bolton or E.O. Smith?
I can answer that for you more thoroughly, but there is some work there that needs to be
There's
done.
work. I guess we could sit at meetings and have comments and stuff,
Mhm.
but truly, are they in on the decision making? Do they get a vote? Do they, anything like that?
I'm gonna step in here because I'm not sure this is a budget.
Well, at 170,000, I think it's a
Well,
budget.
let me rephrase that.
Okay.
The stuff you're putting on the table is not gonna be resolved in time for us to put a number in this year's budget. Okay,
Okay,
that's why I
yep,
not saying I disagree or agree with you, but I think there's probably a different forum where you should pursue that. Okay,
I have
I
a
got you.
question.
Judy?
Regarding the mandates on class size, could you say when those?
It's in the legislature, it is not confirmed yet. It will not be for next year. They would give you time.
So then my thinking that going up to, whatever it is, teachers, related to that, it's not related to that this year?
To increase a math teacher, so that is not related to the numbers, that's related to what can be offered at the middle school level, so various levels of math. The health teacher was, because those class sizes are really large in general and health, and then the speech pathology half-time position was also, again, not mandated, but her numbers are way over best practice by about 20.
So then it would be, if that legislation passes, we would be going up a full-time into half-time.
If that legislation passes, every grade level would have to be looked at. It would be kind of a gradual thing. I know Mrs. Lewandowski was going to add the math this year, and then next year may need to be adding English, language arts, science or social studies. Originally, all 4 were in the budget, and we reduced it to just that one.
And one more question related to mandates. And I thought you were getting a list of mandates, did we get them?
I have the mandates.
Which without, I gave you the list of proposed legislation.
Oh, no.
Proposed
not the
legislation. You don't care about
I
that.
have my own tracking of what's happening for municipalities and, other things I'm interested in, so.
There's so many mandates, like, it's like a novel.
Right. And typically there's a school year in between when the legislation, and then, so it's the next school year. And do they monitor compliance? Is there, if you wanted a longer rollout period, for instance, to stave off budget increases or something, would that be?
So there's a process you can go through for that. It's a lengthier process, and you have to be able to prove that you're meeting the requirements of the mandate in other ways. For instance, if I use that English language arts as an example, we would have to have studies and prove that the one that Horace Porter is using meets, ABC criteria to not go through with what they're mandating.
Okay, thank you.
Anything?
On the curriculum that you have to change, that went into effect over a year ago, and it's gonna affect this year's.
So it was voted in 2022, and that's why it's in this year's budget for 23. Again, it's only through K3. We have it in through 5th grade, just because the cost of only doing it just grade 3 is not that much different.
Right, no, I get that, but we also heard from Tim Ackert that they're trying to put in a waiver process for that. It's because the state clearly made a mistake by mandating people get new curriculums when they just got, spent $1 million on a curriculum, so.
So that is,
Heard anything?
that is what I've described. That is the waiver process that you would have to do all those steps to prove that the curriculum you're using is going to meet the same criteria as the 6 that they've given us.
And it's not worth doing that with what you recently purchased?
It wasn't necessarily worth doing that. Mrs. Lewandowski is the expert on the ELA curriculum, and she did not feel that it was worth that.
So that waiver process is already in place.
Mhm.
It's not exactly a waiver if they make you, if they give you alternative ways of meeting mandates, that's one thing, but waivers, at least in government, typically mean either a longer period and could be nothing, and then have to meet it by a later date or something.
Hello? Okay, this thing that I gave you guys I just, I thought if I jotted down some notes, because we took some things around and, again, we don't seem to be that upset with anybody's budget. Now we have to figure out how we can afford it or how we go about funding. The first little group of numbers up top is, one of the things that was suggested was that we take a look at the impact of changing the collection rate, the assumed collection rate. And there are several columns. The first column, 97.5 is what we do now, and those numbers in the budget document. The other columns reflect the impact of if you change that. I gave a series of steps, 0.5%. So you can look at the impact of where you feel we ought to be, or where you would be comfortable moving that to. You don't have to vote on that right now. I'm just running through this document. And the other thing I did was, the next set of numbers is what happens if we take certain amounts from the fund balance to mitigate the mill rate increase. And this is a series of columns, different amounts, and how it will be impacted under the various collection rates. And then that, of course, what the mill rate will be and what percentage increase that represents. And I just, what did I do? Read out the fund balance. Right now, the budget document has a beginning fund of $4,645,000. This represents a couple of different scenarios. The first column would be, actually, the first thing I did was I had looked at the budget document and didn't seem to have a projection this year of collecting property taxes over the budgeted amount. So I just said maybe we will have additional money in the fund balance. So, and I made that number up, 300,000. The next thing I looked at, basically we got two courses of action. One, if we get the HVAC grant, that will be transferred out of the fund balance, and I hope I did the subtraction. And instead of addition, I threw this together this afternoon very quickly. But anyway, if we don't do anything to mitigate the mill rate, only and there's a transfer of $1.9 million for HVAC, then maybe that should be $1.8 million, I forget. Anyway, that would give us to do other things. We still have $3,045,000 in the fund balance to offset the mill rate. And I just put in a note, don't forget that if we go this route, at the end of the year, we get roughly a $900,000 grant. And we also get some excess property tax collections. That's a standard thing. So this sort of lays out, well, what money do we really have on hand if we go this route? Second column is we don't get the grant. Again, there was a presentation that we probably would want to go ahead and do the electrical work for the new air conditioning, and also there's some engineering costs. So if we don't get the grant, somehow either the board of selectmen will have to do a town meeting to approve those two transfers, or they would ask us to just include it in the budget. In either case, it would reduce the fund balance by $525,000. Anyway, this is sort of laying out, well, what would happen. What position are we really in before we start talking about taking money out of the fund balance to reduce the effects of a mill rate increase? And at the bottom is just, well, if we do increase, feel like we need to make a certain percentage increase in taxes, what is the impact on a household? A household is now paying $2,000 in taxes. If we have a 1% increase, their taxes only go up $20, 2% increase is $40, etc. So to me, this is sort of like a good reference to, or a reference to that you can look at as we back things back and forth. You can sort of eyeball, well, what would the effect be? Does it really matter? And how comfortable will we be? How comfortable will we be with any decision we make? Questions?
Maybe taking our king around.
Okay.
Question related to that about the grant was increased. Is that, so that was the 2022 grant was increased. Was that related to revaluation or was that related to
No,
additional houses?
well, not this year, but last year.
Right, or-
So the difference between last year's budget document and this year's is strictly new construction and blah, blah, blah. Okay, folks, where do we go from here? Or are we thinking and digesting? No thoughts?
Oh, well, lots of thoughts, lots of thoughts. Some of my numbers don't, it seems to be a moving target, but not by a whole lot. I'm for making some cuts and using some fund balance to work things out. Is this where you want to go? At this time, when you say thoughts?
Oh, yeah.
Okay. What I'd like to do is pull 100,000 from the Board of Selectmen. Pull 200,000 from the Board of Education, knowing that we have 300,000 in the non-lapsing account. We can use that as a backstop. Can't we? If they come and ask for it.
If there's an emergency next year, or an anticipated student coming in, things like that, you can use it, but you can't use it on something that's been anticipated.
Okay, well, it's there in case we do have that surprise. Okay. I've got a couple proposals here. Then I'd use 1 mil or out of the undesignated balance fund to buy it down, which leaves me with about $309,000 dollars to be raised by taxes. Okay, it's geez, I got your numbers over
We're
here.
gonna slow down for the slow group here. You're
I shipped it to you.
saying 100,000 from the,
Board of Selectmen.
Is that operating or capital or both?
I'd leave it up to the Board of Selectmen. To let them, it's like I can't tell the Board of Education where to cut. I'm not gonna tell the Board of Selectmen where to cut.
and for 200 from the Board of Ed.
Correct.
What came after that?
No, well, then I want to use 1 mil from the designated balance fund.
Only 580,000?
Or 1 million.
1 mil, 580,383. I'm using the 97.5 collection rate.
Okay,
All right, and all the numbers are going to change if we vote on using a different collection rate. That leaves me with approximately $309,000 I need to raise for taxes, which, let's see, we're not talking a whole lot. It's less than $500,000 for an increase. And I didn't do the percentages on this one. My second choice would be to, let's see, where did I go there? Okay, so if we, and once again, my undesignated balance fund is 4464133 minus the 1 mil is, 580,383, leaves me with 388,3750. Then it possibly encumbering the 1.8 million. So I pull that out and it brings me down to 2,083,750. Then at the end of the year, if we get the reimbursement and that HVAC goes through, we'll see an increase of 900,000 that would bring the undesignated balance back to $2,983,750. So I think we're pretty close right there. The other thing we could do is, and I'm not against using 1.5 mils out of the undesignated balance fund to buy it down, which would reinstate the pretty much the Board of Ed and Board of Selectmen, the other $500,000.
okay, I hate to keep doing this. 100, 200 in your first suggestion, I'll round off to 1 mil out of the,
Undesignated balance.
undesignated balance. That adds up to 900,000.
Correct.
So if I go down my chart. Yeah, back to budget reduction and fund balances. You just hit a mill rate somewhere between 27.48 and 27.14.
Correct.
And what did you say after that?
I was gonna use 1.5 million to buy it down. I'm really staying around the same numbers. I'm just moving money around. So even if I use 1.5 million and put the board of selectmen back in and the board of finance back in, I'm at a 0.6 mil increase at 319,000 using the numbers I have, which aren't quite in sync with what you have here, but close.
What was last year's mill rate?
25.
2587.
Well, even at 1.5 million, which is
$870,000.
$900,000.
It'd be around 20, he's suggesting 26.
Well, that's still the three things, the three pieces you're suggesting, and then add up to 1.2 million. And again, if I go back to this chart, that goes into mill rate of 26.79.
Yeah, so the second one was almost right there with the first.
Compared to 26.79. That's a mill rate increase of what, 0.9?
I'm not doing that math. Numbers are not different.
Well, it is.
Yeah.
So the percentage is that 0.9 divided by 2587.
Three percent,
How much?
3%.
So the proposal you laid out will call for a 3% tax increase. Using a bigger number from the fund balance. Any reaction to that? I guess,
Are we? He jumped around the lot there for a second. Are you still taking money from the,
Undesignated fund balance.
no, I know that, I'm talking about from the proposed balances.
Those budgets.
Proposed budgets, excuse me. Are you still taking money?
yeah, the numbers we just arrived at, assume 100 from Board of Selectmen and 200 from Board of Ed.
Okay. Got it.
I guess my first reaction is, I don't know what it is, but when I throw out suggestions for budget cuts, I do that because in the back of my mind, I have a good feeling that there's places that can and maybe should be cut. I never just pick a number and throw out an arbitrary number. I'm not saying that's what you did, but is that what you did?
No, I kind of looked at what we've cut in the past years and pulled from things like that. And I think they were good numbers. And once again, I was looking at the undesignated balance fund in case, if we have a big interruption in the big board of the school board, it's usually a child's coming in and tuition issues like that. Also, at the end of last year, before they spent the extra that we were going to be getting back from tuition from high school, that number was right around there. And we ended up with, what was it, 98 or 89,000 coming back. So I saw that as an excess in the Board of Education last year.
Anybody else?
I had done a similar analysis. I had limited it to 1% for each budget, so it was somewhat arbitrary, but not completely arbitrary. It would have been 129,000 from the Board of Education, and that was consistent with their 2 teachers at 150. Was my understanding that was pretty much the cost of 2 teachers. So I didn't think it was completely outside the realm of reasonable. If there were no other places that cuts could be taken, they could be taken in that line. And then it would have been 50,000 from the town and 10 from capital. We did roughly 1% on each. But obviously you can adjust it however you think appropriate. I personally would take more out of capital because I don't think we need to put as much aside as we're putting aside. And you could keep your entire 50 in the town's operating budget, but again, I wasn't gonna say specifically you had to do that, it was just 1% on each budget. And I wanted to stay within no more than 1 mil from the undesignated fund, because I'm very concerned about the possibility that we have to take money out for the HVAC project. And I think everybody's gonna have to tighten their belts because of that a little bit. If we're gonna have to do something with HVAC, even if we get back the 900, which I'm not entirely sure that's gonna happen. I think we're gonna end up having something else that we have to do with the HVAC.
Well, it probably costs more.
Because some money is gonna
It will
come out
cost-
and it's gonna be substantial. And we've often, like, remember when we had to replace the roof? We had to take that out of the fund. So I don't really want to diminish the fund significantly.
Okay, I came in thinking the way you're thinking, but then if I look at the numbers, we were thinking we were gonna be down around 1,700,000 in fund balance, but now I'm looking at 4 million before we do anything. I'm gonna call a timeout here because there might be more information that we need to have, and I'm gonna put that on the spot. You're always looking at, sometimes we'll get new information last minute, sometimes, with documents like this, there's a million numbers, and sometimes we tweak them, so any tweaks, Bev?
So, as I mentioned last week about the LoSiP grant, we could hold off applying for it this year and save it for next year, and that would be at least $100,000 going into revenue. That would help. The excess cost grant is probably based on getting the information from you about who's excess cost. I could probably increase that to another $50,000 possibly. So that's right now $150,000 additional revenue. The interest rate that the town is receiving on investments, I could probably add at least another 25,000 to interest for next year. So we're up to about $175,000 that I can do for revenue predictions for next year. So I would recommend that change so that then you can reconsider what you want to take out of the fund balance or your other cuts. Still reviewing the revenues to see how it's coming in this year. I think a lot of the town fees might have leveled off with the constructions and all that coming down, so. And then again, we could go with it doesn't make a big difference going from a 97 to a 98% increase. It will help a little bit, so if we want to do that, I recommend that too.
You're saying it's not significant to do from 97.5 to
When I
98?
looked at the change in mill rate, it was only like a 0.3. It's not a big,
Yeah, I thought it came to $75,000.
yeah.
My
I
calculation.
just did a quick thing, but yeah, I mean, it's not like it's gonna be hundreds, $100,000,
No.
but yeah, but it will help.
Every bit.
Yeah,
Now,
it'll help.
we're kind of scraping pennies here.
Yeah. So I can make those changes for next week, so you can kind of, if you want those changes put in, and then you can see that and see what the 2 boards come back with for counter offer, I guess.
Well, just, typically, we can't authorize that, that's the applying for grants is this guy, are you comfortable with using most of the money next year? I mean, it's just sitting at the state not being used. We might as well get it and find a way to use it, or at least that's my opinion.
Yeah, better to talk about it. I would rather get it now than pray that the state has a waiver for us, because I'm not trusting anything.
Oh, well, it doesn't, once it's entitled, they can't take that,
Okay, sure.
so it's eligible
Okay, so we can include, there's $100 bonus right there
for next year, for this
for
year.
next year.
Next year.
The 50K, that's pretty solid arithmetic, or the excess, or
Yeah, I'm
reasonably.
gonna go over the numbers with Barb again to make sure. From what we were told, I was given, the excess cost reimbursement is 80% above the threshold. I go a little below that, because we've done that before.
She's nodding.
Yeah, be a little more conservative on it, but it still will add more to the revenue. So I just want to go over the numbers again and make sure we're clear on that, so.
Okay,
And then the interest of that,
and the interest, that's the reflection of the change in
Yep.
what's been happening.
and the 98%.
Question, Deb, are we still waiting on the finalization of the health insurance increase?
So we did get some rates, so it's at the broker to finalize. I think we got the health, but we didn't get the dental. The dental will be pennies if it changes at all. So based on what I could see, it's pretty close to what I probably already have in the budget, so I don't expect it's gonna change much. I'm gonna look at the enrollment projection for next year, so there might be an adjustment of that, which could be anywhere from $20,000 to $30,000, could be a little higher depending on what's happening. So I could probably adjust that line too. Same thing with fuel, I'm still looking at it and see how it was budgeted, but I'm also trying to look at actuals. So there could be some savings in there, maybe about 10,000, so on both sides, so. If you want me to just make those adjustments for next week, I can do that or include it when we figure out all the reductions.
I'm sorry, I wasn't listening, I was trying to figure out how to turn the machine.
So I might have some changes in the health insurance enrollment numbers and fuel. So do you want me to just come back after making the changes, or do you want me to just wait next week and tell you what they are before I put them in?
Are they gonna be what you suggest as a final number?
Yes, it'll be the final number.
And then might as well reflect it in the
Okay,
document.
I'll let you know what the changes are.
Well, I have too much glare. Who's got the calculator?
Got it.
Let's start with the 16,751,210, the amount to be raised by taxes. 16,751,210.
Yep.
Subtract 100,000.
Okay.
Subtract another 50,000. Subtract another 25,000.
16, 576, 210.
Okay. Divide that number by the value that if we're still, we haven't changed from the 97.5, so divide that by 580,382.58.
All right, I screwed up. Give me that number again,
It's
16,
it's on
5.
the, it's on the sheet I gave you,
No, I know, but what was the other
16,576, 210.
210.
Okay, divided by the mill.
Yeah, value of the mill.
583,358.
$28.56.
Okay, but he divided it by the 98.
No, I didn't do that. I did the 583, which is the 97
Okay, thank you.
in half.
He read.
Yes, we read the wrong number.
I thought we would. Okay.
I'm sorry, what's
So
it?
28.56.
Okay, so without making any decisions, just reflecting new information, we're down from the budget document on 2886 down to 28.56, so 3/10 of the mill, just by reflecting the new information.
Okay. And that would still be almost a 3% increase, just shy of like 2.7. Because we're presently 2587.
What are you doing?
I was comparing the 2856 to the current mill rate of 2587.
Yeah, it's more than 3% increase.
Yeah, it's 1.5 million, $1.6 million, right?
What?
20, a mill rate of 28.56, 28.56, we have a mill rate now of 25.87, that's a 3 point something mill rate.
2.99 mill rate increase, 11.57% increase. So let's make sure we're talking,
Yeah. So I was just saying that the difference in the current mill rate versus the 2856 would be 2.69 mills,
Which is about a 10% increase.
roughly a 10% increase.
okay, yeah, you were saying,
Sorry, I wasn't clear, sorry.
that's okay. We'll punish you later.
So yeah, that would be a 10% increase.
Okay, so the health insurance was on the, whose health insurance, everybody's? Beverly, do we have any idea what the impact of that, now, wait a second. Do we have any idea of the dollar range impact of this, health insurance?
Right now.
What are we talking enrollment?
Yeah, so it could be 20 or 30,000. Yeah, on each side, I just have to double check everything.
Okay, still pretty much peanuts.
And one of the other numbers we usually get is additional income we think is coming back, like expenditures that we don't make. I mean, it's really early.
I would have put some in there that I knew definite, like this year, there was, except the property tax, that's probably about at least 100,000. There was a grant we got this year, it was $106,000 that we did not expect this year, so that's, but that's already in there. Okay. I'll put in the property tax variance, but I currently it's at least 100,000 for property tax. Overall, there was, yeah, we got a municipal revenue share, which was not anticipated. The education cost share came in about 55,000 more, especially that the excess cost came in about extra 45. So I put in what I could already in here.
And that's on
Yep.
30 and 31.
It's on page 23, which flows over to the last page.
Yeah.
And then interest too, because right now that's probably going up. So that all flows into the last page. It's a positive variance.
Okay, Art, I'll put you on the spot. You've been tag teaming with Jeff over there. Are you with him in caboose? You have any thoughts on accepting budgets?
I was thinking of cutting a little bit more than what Jeff was recommending. But that was based on the conversations we had during the meetings. I didn't know if the school could cut. Right. I think I was around the same number Jeff was, but I was more on the town budget. I was suggesting, because I know you thrown out $500,000 number or $200,000 number or something like this. Steve had. Looking right now at the,
500,000?
I never threw that out.
200.
no, it was around 500,000 initially, way back when. At a meeting.
All right.
Well, the combined increase of the two is about 500 between
Correct.
town and.
What I said was, just to clarify, what I've said was, if you told me the town had to find 2 and the school 3,
Yeah.
I didn't say the town could find 5. Believe me. I could cut 6 positions, it wouldn't be 5.
Anyways, I was looking a little bit more steep cuts than what, but even then, it was getting us down to like 26. No way, I think I sent you my numbers. But then I was doing it different.
Judy, any thoughts? You don't have to. Stephen, you ready?
I'm not far off in what Jeff was saying. The 100, 200, take all the other adjustments that Bev has, include the mill rate. I mean, the percentage increase on the tax collection rate. And drop the general fund. You know, I mean, I think from the back forward, I'd like to say, I would expect that I don't think the town or I would be upset if the mill rate increased by 6 or 7%, because everything in the world has increased that much. And I try to work back from that number with all the final revenues presented, and then make a recommendation on what cuts. You know, I know that it seems like every year we keep increasing, and I'm the new guy on the block. You know, but listen, we increase the general fund because we either over collect or underspend in certain areas.
The other thing I was gonna add, and it's just my 2 cents on the matter, is that we keep saying that there's going to be a rise in inflation when the Federal Reserve continues to raise interest rates, and literally everybody on Wall Street says there's going to be a recession. So in point of fact, outside of, colloquial wisdom, everybody who's in the finance sector is saying that we're not going to have an inflation problem. We're going to have a recession problem with devaluation of the dollar or devaluation of value of things. So we might end up in a situation where we've now raised taxes and, there's just less there to collect.
I'm not sure what you just said.
Well, no, everybody in this room has been, up until I proposed this, has been assuming that everything's going to be rising inflation.
Yeah,
That there's
I
going to be
understood.
inflation. And I'm saying to you, like, everybody who's on Wall Street and who's in the money area is saying the exact opposite. Is saying that with the rising interest rates that the Fed is doing under Jerome Powell, there's going to eventually be a tipping point, and things are gonna go the exact reverse direction.
Yeah, but how does that
Yeah, how's that change?
inform us?
It changes the,
Yeah, but we don't know until it happens.
Well, we may have low collections. I mean, recession brings a lot of problems. It brings high unemployment, it brings high costs. People will stop paying their taxes, so we may go down in terms of revenue. It's a lot of bad things that will happen with a recession. People just won't have enough.
I understand that, I guess I have.
so I'm just saying, we're sitting here, we're trying to raise all these budgets, and then there might be recession, and then all of a sudden we're stuck. Especially with school budgets, with regs the way they are.
Yeah, I guess what I was gonna say is I have the advantage or the stupidity of having done this for 20 years. 22 cycles with the threat of inflation, the threat of recession, the threat of God knows what. And throughout all that, we've never had a year where we've been really stressed because of any decision we made. So I guess I have no overly exaggerated fear of the future for things, how it might affect us. Again, I don't even have anything I want to throw out. Judy, did you ever get anything?
Yeah,
I'm trying to
I don't
test the
feel
luck
like-
here.
again, I guess this is similar to what you said. Just proposing an arbitrary number to reduce budgets, it doesn't work for me. I think it has to be something specific, so I prefer not to do that. And I would remind people that in response to you, Art, that the unemployment rate was really high during COVID and our collection rate didn't change. So
Because they were
Well,
printing
they're
money, and giving it to
printing,
people.
they're printing money and you had all these handouts coming out, so that doesn't, you
Well,
can't
that-
compare that to what a true recession will do.
But it didn't flow to, it flowed more to the cities than it did to our type of area, much more to the cities, so. I mean, I shouldn't say this, but our collection rate seems, if not bulletproof,
It's been stable, it has been very high, very stable.
very stable. So
Forever.
I don't have any concerns about that. And frankly, your computations, Ernie, on the fund balance are heartening to me. So, yeah, so I'm okay with the proposed budgets. I don't whack on $300,000 altogether off of a 20 million or 200 out of a 12 million. It doesn't seem, it just doesn't seem like it's a salient attack on the problem. So I think we can bear with what we can present.
Back to you, John.
But one thing with the numbers, while they're a little skewed, I propose if we have to spend not yours, but the extra $525,000 for the wiring and any engineering, it still, at the end of the year, leaves us with over a $2 million, about $2.4 million balance, which would be in good place to be heading into next year, especially if, Art's worried, but I'm not that worried about what's gonna
Yeah, but
happen.
I'm little Susie's daddy, and I say, why did you cut my daughter's school budget by $200,000 when you have 4.5 million?
Well, because right now I've got 1.8 million that I'm proposing that's gonna be encumbered before that, and another $500,000 that we're gonna be looking at wiring and engineering. So, that 4.46, I don't, or whatever it is a real number. You gotta take 2 point something off that. And if it doesn't happen, well, then,
Wait a minute, what, you gotta take 2 point,
well, if you add the 1.8 and the 400,
what's the 1.8?
So
you're
you're
1.9. 1.9, excuse me.
Oh, so it's 1.8, okay, I screwed up.
And you add the 400 to it for that.
No. Those are two separate scenarios. The 1,900 is everything, the whole project. The 400 and the 125 is a reduced
It's
version.
the whole project? It's gonna, what are we gonna do about the water issues and things like that? Is there gonna be more going on up
That's the problem.
there? Right,
Well,
so,
that's-
you're
I-
1.9, but I don't believe it's gonna be 1.9.
I don't believe it's gonna be 1.9 either, but that's the only number we have. The question is, if it's not 1.9, what do you have to fall back on? And that happens to be $4 million. Do you think this project is gonna cost more enough that $4 million drops to an amount that puts the town at risk?
If we don't do the project, no, we're in great shape. All right, if we do the project and everything and we make the cuts, before we get the reimbursement, we're down to around $2 million. Plus or minus,
No,
No,
Judy's reading my chart.
But either
I'm not
way-
reading
but
your
either
chart.
way, Ernie,
Yeah,
you're assuming, let's say we get the grant allegedly, we spend the $1.8 million, you're assuming that we're gonna get 450 from property tax variance, additional revenue that we're gonna collect.
450,
Well, 300 and then 150,
yeah.
because you add the 22 and the 3 and the 23, 24 adjustment.
Well, the 300 is gonna be whatever number that comes up with by looking at this.
Right,
year's.
I
But there will be
But
some,
I'm just doing the math that you did.
yeah, and at the end of the year, there has always been an excess in that line item.
Yes, there often is.
It won't be 150, it'll be something else, but okay, cool.
But what if we don't get the 900,000? Because if we go a day over the deadline on the project, we don't get the grant money. So none of that is guaranteed,
I'm
the refund.
not saying.
And I'm also, on your second column, the 400 and the 125 is just the bare minimum, then you actually have to do whatever it is that you wired for the
This is
HVAC.
not my project, stop yelling at me.
Just saying that
Well,
we're
like,
looking at really robust remaining numbers of 4
these
million.
are the numbers we have, and that's what I put on the paper. I was not in a position to say I can come up with a better number than these, so I put the published numbers on the paper. I do not defend them.
I just don't think that we should assume that there's gonna be 4 million bucks.
Well, how bad can this go? Don't push your gut feeling. I don't think we're gonna have 4 million either, but I don't think we're gonna be down to 1 million.
No, I think 3 million is a more realistic number. To assume we could, because I worry about 900,000 actually coming in, or that we're gonna end up having to spend more money to do some HVAC.
That's
On
probably
top
what
of the
happened.
wiring and stuff.
I don't think it's necessarily useful to,
Mark, wave at me if you can still hear us anyway. Thank you.
I got you.
I don't think it's useful to.
Can you see us? Sorry. Okay,
Right.
go ahead.
Just because we anticipate that things will be more expensive, which I think that's a good way to look at things. I don't think it makes any sense to assign any numbers to those because we're completely making it up. I think we have to stay with the estimates we have, and then that's why we have a fund balance. It may go wrong, things may get more expensive, and we have a healthy fund balance. It may not, and we may end up with more money, as we often have in my short experience here. So assigning a value to how long we think things can go doesn't seem like a useful exercise to me.
Art, I forgot, I'm not Art, Steve, I forgot what you said, so do you mind repeating yourself?
Leaning towards utilizing all the latest numbers on revenue increases. Up to 250,000. Look at if there is any chance that we could delay some of the capital expenditures so that we can smooth out an increase. No, I'm not for 11% increase, and I'm not for a 0% mill rate increase. Hitting somewhere in the middle and using some of the general fund. I didn't work out the math. I didn't know if we asked to do the calculation.
Is somebody looking to say something over here? Let's, actually, there's only one, that identified only 175,000.
Well, this 97.5 to 98 was the other 75,000. But you have that in your, up here under calculated differently. I'm just,
Are people leaning toward going that way?
Or what way?
98% collection rate.
I think it's relatively fair. We usually are in that range.
But the doom and gloom people say that we're gonna have a recession and we probably shouldn't be as conservative. I mean, I'm for 98, I'm just being
I-
conservative right now. but-
I don't think the recession will hit back quickly. That this year's collections will be up probably because they're due in July and January, so it's 6 and 8 months from now.
Does anybody object to that? Changing the collection rate?
No.
Make a motion.
Yeah, just move that we,
All right, I'll make a motion that we change the collection rate to 98.0.
I'll set to go. We need to discuss it anymore? All those in favor? Aye. Opposed, abstentions? Okay, so now we're focusing on that column, under 98. Uh, So we're still, okay, Beth said she's gonna fiddle around and come up with 200,000 in total changes to the money, 200,000 to the good. Now, if I go down to the 98% column, somebody says, I don't think we should increase the, or I'm comfortable with the tax rate increase of X%. Give me a percentage.
7.
Doesn't matter if you believe it or not.
7.
7.
I'm not comfortable with that.
I didn't think you would be. But my point is, if you go through the exercise, I'll use 7.68 to get a tax increase of 7.68%. You need 500,000 of positive experience. Bev has already found 200,000 of positive experience. That means we have to take 300,000 out of the fund balance to get to that point, to get to 7.6. Now, I don't think anybody's gonna be happy with the 7% tax increase, or we're probably not gonna leave the room with that. But you get my point, the exercise you can go through with the sheet is, well, within my mind, I think we ought to be moving upward, and maybe we should be moving toward a 2% tax increase. Then that says that was already found 200,000 to get to 2%. We need to have 1.3 million of positive experience. So we have to find another $1.1 million out of the fund balance. Maybe that's a bad thing. Maybe you're not comfortable with that. But let's start to focus on what will we have to do. And would I be comfortable presenting that to the public for the impact it's going to have on them next year? Would I be comfortable being sort of a fiduciary for the town? Would I be comfortable with the fund balance, or would wind up being? I think we have to answer those questions and not just throw out, what if we do something 100,000? I think we have to look at the whole picture, big picture, and see what that implies. And going back to one of the things where I think arts, I keep calling you Art, I'm gonna stop doing that. Stephen, if we were targeting 7.68%, for instance, that means we have to 500,000 in positive experience. Bev has already found 200,000, and somebody has thrown out the suggestion, why don't we cut the town budget by 100,000 and the school budget by 200,000? That would be a total of $500,000 experience, and we take nothing out of the fund balance. I'm not sure we want to do that.
Are we still talking about the 1.3 million adjustment?
1,000,003.
Oh,
No,
No, we started the 500.
I went backwards.
oh, okay.
I just tried to factor in everything that's been thrown out. Went backwards to say, well, if we cut budgets and factor in what that's new information. One of the suggestions said, okay, we don't touch fund balance at all.
No, well,
Okay, that's why I said, let's try to
right.
walk through a scenario that makes sense. Where we are at the end, the impact on the budget. Do we need to do it? Are we afraid that we're gonna have a recession that's gonna break the bank? Is ever gonna run away with all our money? I don't know. Take me with you.
But if we started with what you had said before, the 2% roughly, which if we look at that is 2.38%, that's the closest one,
Okay,
which would be a mill rate of 26.49, right? Which is an increase of
Looks like it, yeah.
0.62. And so that's the 1.3 million differential.
gotcha.
We adjusted the budgets by 300,000, so
It's
now that's 1
proposed,
million.
yeah.
And we would have to take 1 million out of the undesignated
Are you
fund?
counting Bev's 200?
No,
that are-
200, so then there were 800 from the undesignated fund,
Okay, that's,
slightly above a mil.
okay,
So 600 is about a mil, so
yeah, you thought it through, okay, now, are you happy with that? Is everybody happy with that? Tell me now.
I think the 0.62 increase is in the realm of what we were thinking, something under one, above
Okay,
half,
back up, where'd you get, what fund balance usage did you get to?
roughly 800.
Eight
If
hundred?
I'm doing the math right.
Now, you know, Dick doesn't want to cut anybody's budget, so and Dick's proposal gonna be, it might be, okay, I'm happy with that percentage, but don't cut a budget, so that's what we need.
More out of the undesignated fund.
1.1.
I would be embarrassed to go to the town and say we didn't ask anybody to cut anything.
Why?
Because I think that there should be everybody should be contributing something to getting us to a point where we have a reasonable tax increase.
Okay,
And I think there's always room in a budget to find some savings.
well, I'm not gonna argue, I'm listening.
I identified the places where I thought there could be savings.
I don't remember.
The 2 teachers and capital. But we don't need to be putting as much aside for savings, for some of the items that we're looking to save, especially when there's going to be interest increasing.
Well, the only problem with that, I think, Stephen always makes the point, you're just putting it off, you know.
I'm not reducing them by $1 million, I'm reducing them by under 100,000 across all of the capital items. However he wants to allocate it, it's not a huge amount. And I imagine if we put his feet to the fire, he could find a place where he could live with taking out. I came up with 60,000, but I could live with just 100,000.
Okay. Where do we go from here? Okay, you know what you just did? I don't think, or I would prefer to wait for Dick to come back next week and do a full board vote. The proposal on the table, what did I hear? Some people feel the numbers that we're floating around now is most likely to be requested, or that you're most likely to put out in the form of a motion.
The
$100,000 reduction to the board selectmen budget, or?
correct, 100,000 to the board of selectmen,
And,
200,000 to the board of ed.
okay,
All right, and with, those are what I want to put out, with Bev coming in with the extra 2. That brings us to $500,000, then I would propose, right?
it's gonna be more than that, I think.
Well, okay, but, and then I would propose going back to, taking $1 million out of the undesignated balance fund, and that's gonna put us right around $1 million, a little over $1 million.
Well, wait a minute, are we going for a comfortable target range, or are we just doing arbitrary, take some money out? Let's agree on the technique. Kelly just walked through, she said, I'd be comfortable with an increase of around, somewhere around the 1.72, which she gave
Okay,
lots of
okay, you work backwards, I don't.
Well, it's not working backwards, you got a tool you can use, and everybody can follow.
Okay.
So next week, most likely, there will be a motion on the table to reduce the board of selectmen budget in some way by 100,000. Doesn't sound like anybody has a specific proposal, but most likely that motion is gonna hit the table. Next week, sounds like there's also gonna, most likely gonna be a motion on the table to reduce the board of selectmen, board of ed budget by 200,000. Without any specific recommendations, you just say, so.
Bertie,
Then I think, oh,
that's true. Without the particular recommendation, it doesn't make any difference if we recommend, does it?
I'm not
As far as
sure,
the cut,
I don't understand your question.
We're not allowed to pick line items.
we're not
That's what
allowed
I'm
to pick
saying.
line items,
Yes, you are.
but they can spend the money anywhere they want.
Yes, they will.
Not necessarily for us.
Well, you don't have to specify a line item again.
Right, even if I go through and come up with
No.
25 lines that I can
Well,
nitpick
okay.
this, that, the other thing.
I came in here thinking I was gonna make a motion to reduce the Board of Ed budget by some amount, 200,000. But I talked to Barb, and she said, because I had a suspicion, I looked at it and said, this line item looks like it's got some fluff in it. She said, no, it doesn't, here's the proof. So, I'd rather operate that way than just say, we'll find 200,000. But you can, you have the right to do that. Again, I just run the meetings, I don't make the decisions, so you guys are leading a certain way, so fine. I just, I think that the people who run the various boards would appreciate, I'm just letting them know in advance, making it clear that they're likely to hear next week. Therefore, they can be prepared to say, that's too painful, please reconsider, or they can say, I can do that. I don't know what our response will be. I don't know if we'll have a chance to talk to the board, but now you know what's likely to come, and I think they appreciate that. That's all I'm doing right now, is making it clear that that motion will probably hit the table, and of course, we will give them the courtesy of being able to respond. Or we don't have to, and if you guys don't want to hear from them, then that's your choice too, but I think we as a group will extend that courtesy out, I hope. So, when will you have numbers, Bev, or you have numbers now? There's just one you're really working on?
So I can send out an updated one by the weekend.
Okay, why don't you send that around? And again, I would very much encourage everybody to sort of walk through the process that we just went through. Make sure you're comfortable, and make sure when you get down to, oh, this is wonderful, we only have to use 100,000 in fund balance for, do we really need 4 million? Everybody was always saying we have too much. Now we're saying, I don't know what we're saying. I'm not comfortable touching that because the economy might go mad. You're right.
mean-
I'm not passing judgment.
But we have those savings account. This is a $4 million savings account, and they have a $400,000 savings account because they've been putting money aside for the truck, and another couple $100,000 in another savings account because they're putting money aside for something else. So they're all just a bunch of savings accounts. Whether we have them in a line item or we have them in the undesignated fund, we just have a bunch of savings accounts because we're putting money aside.
Yeah,
But what we're doing, when we put them into the budget, instead of in there, we're raising taxes. So I would rather not put them into the line item savings accounts. I'd rather reduce those savings accounts and keep a larger fund balance. That's my preference.
that's fine, but where the money in the fund balance come from? Okay. So you don't want to give the taxes back that you already collected? I'm going devil's advocate here, just so.
I'm saying we reduce the budget, not that we raise taxes and not that we raise the undesignated fund. That's my,
And not
because
give
we've already raised enough in taxes, is my point.
the guy who always irritates me, he says we overtax people, we should give some back. He always says that, don't you?
Now and then, yes.
Okay. We're not gonna resolve anything tonight. We understand what the thinking thought process is. We have the tool that we can, I would hope that everybody would take notes so that we're not throwing out numbers, because we all think differently. We take different paths to get to the bottom line, and that can be confusing. So to have an idea, jot it down, put it on paper, so when we're listening, we can follow a straight path.
If you were going to do the $200,000,
Say again, I
If
can't
you
hear.
were gonna do the $200,000 in cuts, we want something specific from from the school budget, it would be potentially getting a waiver for the English department, because that's about $100,000 right there. And then the 2 staffers that they're looking to employ, that'd be your $200,000 right there.
Okay,
And then
no, that's your thought process, that's a legitimate thought process, I mean, again,
no, I'm trying to remember what I was thinking for the towns,
For
like
the capital.
the capital, thank you,
Yeah.
would be where the $100,000 comes from.
okay,
I mean, if we're gonna throw out numbers.
you got any?
Any word on the
Are
grant?
you gonna say something, Steve?
Yeah.
Okay, I'm not Steve Tom.
You asked me to, I don't think some of us don't listen. We hear what we want to hear. So I think what I said last week, I said, if you said to me, cut 200,000 and, you know, yeah, we could cut it. We could cut it. What I'd rather you ask me was, how would it affect what's going on here? It affects probably the 125 that we put aside for the culverts. The culverts that are, if you talk to DPW, the director, and the people that have worked in this town for 30 years, some of them are in pretty bad shape. And whatever happens, even if we get help, it won't cover it all right? That's why I want to put money away for that. We authorized the new backhoe. Wasn't on a forecast because it's on its last legs. It's actually dangerous for the guys to drive up there at the transfer station. Because it wasn't on the forecast 10 years ago, we had to take 160,000 out of the undesignated fund. I don't want to do that. That's why I forecast things. When talking to the people who know, who run the equipment and tell me their best estimate when we're gonna need to replace these things. Things that answer the call, I won't go. That's why I forecast things. That's why I put money away. The other thing is, you're asking me, and I'll take it away from probably Department of Public Works, for new material that will cover roads that add the life. I sat down with Beth, because I wanted another, understand a little bit more. You could add between 7 to 15 years life on roads that are not heavily traveled, but they're traveled. I said, oh, can you use it on, the Columbia Landing? You can't use it on there, it's too far gone, but you could use it on Scalise Drive and add 15 years to the repaving of that road. So you heard me say, if you held my feet to the fire, I probably could cut. I could cut one of the laborers. We wanted help to keep our fields nice up there. Okay. But you sit there, and you say, we don't like what we heard, but I'm not gonna ask any more questions about why you need the 2 positions or why you have that extra $100,000 in there. Give me more information. You just arbitrarily say, cut it. It's a dangerous position. I know, I hate taxes. Can't stand them. I hate raising taxes. Wanted to go through my time as first selectman, never having to raise taxes, to be honest with you. Reality is, we're gonna have to raise them. I don't know what that school is gonna cost us for this thing. I put in stopgaps there because if it comes in at 2.4, we have to go back to the drawing board. I don't know what the answers are over there. I really don't. But the bottom line is, we're doing our very best. I always try to bring you a real bleach bone type of budget where I've thought long and hard about it. Because I don't play the fluff game. I might. So I'll take it from future endeavors. And in 5 years, when they say, well, we gotta spend $400,000 to repave Scalise, Well, we could have used it to repave, I don't know, Pine or Hunt. Son of a gun, we could have saved that road, added 15 years to it, but we wanted to save $100,000 out of a budget of 4.6 plus finding extra $200,000. She's not finding it. It's just what we've done and the action that we've taken in this town to be able to spend the money that we took last year from people's pockets and spent it wisely. Okay, sometimes it looks like there's stuff there. Maybe we just did a damn good job, our people out there, Department of Public Works, rec, you name it, okay? I'll find you your $100,000. I'm not happy. I'm not happy, especially when she's able to find another 200,000 and we're sitting on 4.6 and you know, our tax rate is better than we forecast, so we're gonna have another 300,000. I came in with a budget of 4.6 plus a 16,750 revenue. So, guess you did your job. I'm done.
Anybody, anything else? Okay, I just have one question. I probably asked this before, I'm getting old and tired. Those two numbers. Would you, and we don't have an answer yet on the grant, I assume. If the answer comes in no, would you prefer that we reflect those in the budget? Or would you prefer to do a town meeting? Handle separately through a town meeting? Or would you like to think about that?
I don't think I'm ready to answer it right this second. I want to ask somebody who's been on the building committee her thoughts on this, because then when she talks about it to me, it'll give me more of a foundation, factual, to be able to think about it and come back with a decision. Who's been on the building committee?
The HVAC.
Yep. So we know that we are probably going to have to increase our electrical panel and wiring. If we don't get the grant, we may not even move forward with this project. We may wait another year to apply again.
Okay.
Is it better for the town people to put it in there because we really believe we're gonna have to increase the panel? Or is it until we wait to see what the system's gonna need and what we finally go with before we allocate any money for that?
That's not something we've talked about specifically with the committee, but I'd be happy to bring it back to them.
Okay.
I can pipe in. We do have mandates for air quality. We will have to do the electricity to adhere to those mandates, whether we go with the current project or something else, but we will have to do that.
I understand it, but those mandates have not been, they have been passed and they're put into,
Next year, I think is our 1 year off, and then they have to be mandated. We have to do it.
That's what I heard before.
I think I gave you.
But just doing the wiring, that's just so they can fix the air quality. The wiring doesn't fix the air quality.
I understand that.
Oh, yeah,
What is that? I don't know what that, how does that help with this, what he asked me?
So,
We still don't know how much it's gonna cost.
I understand.
with the wiring, I mean, I don't know the specifics of how it's written, but if we can show that we're moving in that direction, I do wonder if that will help us with the future grants, you know, saying that if we are gonna put off and reapply next year.
That is a good point.
Then
Put it in the
we
budget.
say that we do we're doing electrical, we're moving in that direction, because a lot of times that's my experience with the state and the educational system is that you have to show that you're trying to move forward.
I mean, we got time, I just wanted to, I could get an understanding. We got time before the budget is presented at the hearing.
Well, yeah, I know, honestly, I guess ask people at FiPAC, because if I'm gonna add $500,000, where's that's going into capital?
Yeah, that would be
So
interesting.
that'll increase capital.
So just so you know that if you're gonna put money outside the budget process, the town meeting can only go up to $500,000. So in the budget process, you do more. You could put a little less in until you go out to bid and then do another town meeting to add more. So you could put in some kind of placeholder just to show that you're moving forward with this project once the back people come back.
Talk to you next week, Steve. Okay.
So it's something to think about, because you've already tentatively approved the project through a town
Put it
meeting.
on the agenda.
So to at least show that you're gonna do some funding, you know, I mean, they are gonna come back and they're asking for a more definite, another cost estimate,
I
so.
read your email and okay, I agree. Let's put it on the agenda for Tuesday. Talk to the board about it.
Probably potentially double counting then, because what if we do get the 1.8 million?
Or we just do definite.
No, I know, but then we've got this million in the budget, or the 100,000, let's say that's what we put in the budget, then we didn't need.
No, we're either gonna do column A or column B, not both. So,
Right, but our budget is going to do column A and B together. If we put it
well,
in
it's gonna
place.
do one or the other. Theoretically, we'll get a response from the state soon. Then we'll know whether we're working with column A or column B.
Okay, but I
Because
don't
column
get
A
the sense that we're gonna get
includes-
it next week.
Column A includes the electric update.
Right, I would just like to know what the state's answer is before we go at it, so. So you
I
can get,
don't think you're gonna get it before the
That's what I
budget
was afraid of.
vote. So you're probably gonna be working with column B. Just because of my conversation with the state. So, yeah.
Well, again, we get new information as this process goes along, we'll factor in the best information we have and react. Unless somebody can see the future.
So if we're going with column B, then we can subtract.
No, we're not gonna do any more math tonight. Please. I think
Could
we
we have a
know,
whiteboard or something if we're,
no,
because
they don't use whiteboards anymore.
I know, I said aside to Barbara, you know, can we have the smart board when you're done with it? Because all this throwing numbers and math in the air.
Okay, let's talk about procedures. Next week, again, there's likely to be 2 motions, 3 motions.
Well, if we're working with column B, the changes. Never mind. No more math. Right.
I'm not sure, are you confused?
I think we should just wait until you get the new updated budget document, prepare next week. After you review that, both Board of Selectmen and Board of Ed, they're having their meetings Monday and Tuesday. We'll discuss the conversation that happened here. If there's some things that can come back as potentials, then we'll have that next week, and then you can continue the conversation instead of keep going in circles.
Yeah, I'm not gonna do any math, but I'm gonna put some E's in art over there. I don't need, you know, the defibrillators out there and I know how to work it, but I'd rather have something right here. Whether we do column A or column B, both of those can come from the
Well, I'm saying,
undesignated.
yeah, but I understand, what I'm saying is like, there's a big significant difference as far as like the budgetary process, if we're going with column B versus column A.
We don't know
It
which
changes
column,
everything.
we don't know which column
That's
we're
what I'm saying.
going with. We don't know that until we get a response from the state.
And according to Bev, there's not gonna be a response from the state before we vote on this.
Just
But often
know
happens with
there's
us
a
with.
placeholder, all you have to take into account is that there's a placeholder because of the town meeting of $1.8 million. So you cannot touch that. That has to stay either in the fund balance or it gets allocated. In the meantime, in the budget process, so that they can continue with this project, there probably should be an allocation, whether it's through a town meeting or through the budget process, to let them start working on the electrical upgrade, which will have to be done regardless if the state approves this project, regardless. So that's all you have to think about.
Pardon? May I talk on for the Board of Education? So I just wanted my goal with presenting the budget to you is not to have anything hidden. There's no fluff in our budget. We already took out everything that we thought we could take out. We are trying to increase our SBAC test scores. We have a strategic plan in place. We don't want to skimp. We don't want, we want your children in the town of Columbia to achieve at their highest levels. As a director of special education speaking, I have put in so many programs that have totally decreased, so we don't need outplacements. We don't want to skimp on that, because then ultimately we will spend more. So I just wanted to add that. I've already showed you what I've reduced. To reduce $200,000, that is people, and that will be very impactful on students.
Okay, what I was gonna, Art, is that talk to me, you wanna talk?
Well, yes. First off, no one thinks anybody's no one thinks anybody's hiding anything and stuff like that. The concern, and I've voiced it several times, and you talked about wanting to listen to the experts. And I just pointed out the fact that all the experts are saying we're heading into a recession and nobody wants to listen to them. So, if we go with the column B, and that's the direction we're going, hypothetically, we could pull everything from the fund and, do more along the lines of what, sorry, his name escapes me. Dick suggested, which is pull more money from it, and we're still gonna be above 3 million, assuming we're not getting the grant, and we're just gonna operate under that assumption, and then nobody has to cut any budget. But, I mean, that's if we're operating on column B. Column A, there's gonna have to be some cuts, and it's not reasonable, given that expenditure, not to expect to be there some cuts. And that'll be it.
Okay. I started about 20 minutes ago saying, laying out that there's likely to be 3 motions next week affecting the budgets. Let's talk about procedure. Usually when there's a motion, there's a second, there's a FiPAC only discussion and we vote. I would propose that we open up the discussion to include the people whose budgets are impacted, so we have more of a back and forth, then take a vote. Is anybody uncomfortable with that, or would you rather vote first and have people have to defend some action you already took? And persuade you to change your mind. Preference.
I don't have an objection to participation before we vote.
I vote for transparency.
Okay, we don't have to vote on that, we just understand that that's the way we're gonna operate. And we'll do it. And again, I don't think we're gonna resolve anything else tonight. I think we know where we are, but there still seems to be some confusion on the 2 columns. Is either, if we do not get a response, I think we're stuck with column A. Is that what you were saying, that you have to assume that the grant's gonna go through? If we do not get a response, if we get a positive response from column A, is only if we get a negative response from the grant that we move to column B. And I'm done talking, so Mr. Mitchell, to adjourn.
Make a motion to adjourn.
Okay, thank you, folks.
Good night, everyone. I'm still here. You just can't see me. Good night.
That's no cost.